Guys, thank you for that carrier update. Right now, we are back with our enterprise trucking expert, Thomas Wasson, to continue that conversation about mixing things up in your customer portfolio. And we were talking about this with Ryan Schreiber. I like to think about it as like a trail mix, right? Like everybody likes a little something different in their trail mix. I'm partial to like peanut butter cups and like little chocolate chips, no raisins, but it's different for everybody.
It's not trail.
That's
a Halloween candy bag. That's same
thing though with carriers, right? It's or with your client portfolio. It's a different mix for everybody.
Exactly. And when you put a bunch of trucking companies together and you look at what's in their favorite trail mix, well, we talk about it in terms of customer mix and portfolio. So the mix, so to speak, is imagine you have, you need 20 loads per week. Well, every customer is not always going to ship that year round. So the best example I found was Leo Lazarus, big old book on trucking. I'll call it the Trucking Bible. TLDR. Soup customers ship in the wintertime a lot more than home improvement customers, who ship more in the spring and summer. In order to find balance and perfect harmony in your internal freight network, you want to make sure that your customers are shipping enough stuff year-round, so you may have to do soup in the winter and home improvement in the summer. Now it would work for about 5 trucks, and so it could be pretty good. But when you have 5,000 trucks, the mix becomes more like a Goldman Sachs portfolio. So now we have a little bit of retail, a little bit of automotive, a little bit of this and that. And so, it's important to understand a customer mix. Customers don't get it. They think they're the most special things in the world. Oh, but I'm shipping my one world. When I was a load planner, everybody said that. It's like when you go to school, everybody's child's the best in the world. It's the same thing with your customer. So they would come to me as a load planner and say, well, Thomas, this large box retailer must go now. And unfortunately, this leads to the second important thing, which is internal load balances. Donnie showed us a map of a heat map. Well, rejection rates exist internally in a carrier. So unfortunately, that retail customer who said their freight was most special in the world actually is about 15 spots down the line. Because my market is plus 30, that means I have plus 30 loads and I have no trucks for it. And so when we talk about capacity balances, it's important to understand. Finally, what happens when the mix messes up? When your trail mix goes sour, so to speak? Well, we see tender volumes decline. We see outbound tender rejections go down to less than 8%. That means that for a lot of these customers, just like Ryan talked about earlier, it will hit them in different ways. So now your perfectly made sandcastle of customer freight has now been washed away due to the fact that each customer may have problems with China. They may be having some issues stuck at the border. There may be some protests somewhere. And so it's important for customers and carriers alike to understand the value of the mix, and they always got to change it.
Okay, so let's talk about this mix. It's not always just peanuts versus, Reese's cups or whatever they happen to be inside it, right? It's not always home improvement versus whatever retail, whatever it happens to be. Sometimes it is also, I would argue, and I'd like to get your opinion on this, contract versus spot. Do you keep a certain percentage in the spot market, and are there seasonalities where you do that?
Completely. So most carriers, especially large ones, will be around 85% contract, 15% spot if you're feeling squirrely and brave. Other ones you may keep it around 10%. But when we talk about that, that's not a hard and fast rule, because as these tender volumes and load volumes fluctuate, it will force carriers to tactically go into the spot market for a loss just in order to keep the assets moving. So say that you have a large paper company out of Jacksonville, Florida, that is now lowering their volumes due to shipment issues. So now you have to go into the spot market or solicit internally. So like you said, the mix is good, but having the mix of contract and spot can also hurt you if spot rates catastrophically decline, as we're seeing now.
So follow up, does your in-house brokerage help that?
It can. Now, the important topic to understand with that is called first right of refusal. So most brokerages at large asset-based carriers are operating independently. They also happen, though, to be really good selling points because you can say that I have trucks if needed. The one I came from, other carriers will actually say, I get first dibs. So some large enterprise carriers will actually have the ability to poach from the brokerage. I was an analyst at one time, and so you had to be really careful because when your load board got a little bit slim and you couldn't really solicit, hey, here's some brokerage loads, let's put them on the asset and let's have that. That's very rare, by the way, because most large trucking enterprise carriers want to keep them separate just because brokers hate it when you mess with their loads and they don't get fat margin if the asset-based carrier takes it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Thomas, let's move on to our second topic. We kind of alluded to it earlier today, talking about the issue with AB 5. We're at the point now where the Supreme Court can choose to either hear the issue on AB 5 or not hear it. If they decide to not hear it, it goes into law and it takes effect immediately in the state of California. Let's talk about the implications for the independent contractor, the owner-operator in California.
I would have to say, first off, it's all of our faults. Dang you, Uber and Postmates. So that's originally what AB 5 is targeting, the gig workers. So every time we ordered something, unfortunately, we played ourselves. So California, in its infinite wisdom, decided, hey, this also applies to contracted trucking because they move it. So the crux of the issue is there's an FAA rule that originally defined it. It was super loosey-goosey and basically allowed trucking to have this contractor model. Why? Because contractors help deal with competition and I pay less money. Contractors feel like they get to have a little bit of freedom and pick their freight even though they're stuck inside. It's like a unicorn inside a cage. You feel like you're free, but you're really not. The famous painting. So anyways, kicking back over to it, the stakes are kind of high. It's like a slow-moving legal battle. So in the event the Supreme Court declines this, this will have a huge impact on the drayage inside California. The working conditions of the California port drayage drivers are not very good, and they're often a lot of contractors. So this is going to be really interesting. It's kind of interesting in that people are going to ask Thomas, should I worry about this? And I'm going to tell you there's like 12 different legal cases, but let's find out what happens at the end, just like any good movie, because it could mean that California inadvertently gets rid of the trucking contractor model by accident.
And so the timing on this could be absolutely instrumental as well, because as we all know, we're talking about the ILWU contracts that are coming up at the end of the summer. This court case could be heard at the end of the summer as well. So obviously what's going on with the dock workers will impact the ports on one side. If this impacts the independent contractors with the dray side of things at the ports, then that's both sides having issues at the ports at the same time, correct?
Yeah, it's a wonderful legal game of chicken. I love it, because who's going to blink first is what's going to find out. You have these labor negotiations coming up right as China still has a large glut of ships waiting to come across. It's the perfect storm if I'm a labor union. Oh, we're suddenly back up to 300 ships. I need more money because you automated me. California goes back and says, take that. I'm going to get rid of all the contractors that haul out your chassis. You played yourself, and now everyone goes to the East Coast ports. So regardless of the situation, it is potentially accidentally able to have this huge effect. Also, in the event that these carriers operating in California lose the ability to have contractors, prices go up. So even if labor negotiations take place and they are able to come to agreement, if the Supreme Court declines to look at this case or rules a certain way, it could mean that even though they unload all the containers, there's now nobody left to send it into parts of the Inland Empire.
Is one issue more pressing than the other, do you think?
Honestly, I think Supreme Court will take over a period of weeks or months more than likely, so I would assume that the upcoming negotiations are going to be the big one. What's going to be funny is, not funny, but the humorous part of it is potentially catastrophic for the port workers, because if they do decide to push hard against it, public criticism and drawback means that these other ports along the East Coast are slowly thinking to themselves, let me get another dredge, let me go an extra 50 feet under, and slowly we're going to start rerouting. Because customers are smart. They hate paying money. That's the problem. So you have so much leverage, but you have to be extremely tactical in how you deploy it, because that goodwill and good faith can only go so far when I can't get my Costco chicken.
Absolutely. And then the pressure's on Panama, which is already 2 weeks behind.
100%. All right, Thomas, thank you for being with us for that discussion. You'll be back with us one more time for Roundtable today. Right now, we're going to take a quick break, and there will be more Freightwaves Now in just a few minutes.